Well, good evening and welcome to the Board of Education meeting for Greeley Evans School District 6. Today is June 13th. This meeting will now come to order. Please stand and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance to our flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Ms. Lemon, will you call the roll for us, please?
Director Bentley?
Present.
Director Mash?
Present.
Director Matthews?
Present.
Director Mueller?
Present.
Director Norwood?
Present.
Director Pappas?
Present.
Director Sullivan?
Present.
All board members present.
Thank you, Ms. Lemon. First off, let me apologize for starting our meeting late tonight. We do apologize for that, and we're sorry to have detained you. Everyone who's come to present tonight or to hear presentations tonight. So we were in our work session, and Ms. Lemon will give us an update on our work session in just a moment, but we were getting work done and needed that extra time. So I appreciate your patience. We do have a full agenda tonight. We are hopefully passing a budget tonight, and there will be probably a lot of discussion from us around that budget. So look forward to that. There's one thing though on our consent agenda I want to bring up. Our consent agenda, I've said many times, I have a love-hate relationship with the consent agenda. I love that it makes our meetings shorter and that we can agree that these things don't need discussions. It also, though, sometimes we don't get to talk about things that I would like to talk about, and I will use this time often to discuss those items. And one tonight, if you look on our consent agenda, is a contract we have with Ames Community College. And I wanted, first of all, just to say how much we appreciate Ames and our relationship with Ames. This has been such a valuable partnership for this district, and specifically with regards to Early College Academy. And Early College Academy is a school where our students graduate, most of them, not all of them, but most of them. And when I say most, I mean something like 90 to 95% of our students that are graduating from ECA graduate with their associate's degree. And what we're approving tonight is the funding that helps pay for those college credits with Ames Community College. And so I want to thank Ames, I want to thank the partnership, but I also want to thank the community, because that happens because of our mill levy override. That mill levy override is what pays for those funds. That's what enables our kids to graduate with that college credit, and that makes it, one, easier for kids to go to college, to obtain a 4-year degree, or to be done already, to have marketable skills and enter the workplace right out of high school. And so we're very appreciative to that partnership with Ames, and we're very appreciative to our community for supporting that MLO. And I know we have a lot, so I'm going to keep moving on in our meeting. So we now need to approve an agenda, and we'll need to have a motion to do that.
I move that the Board of Education of Greeley Evans School District 6 approves the agenda as presented.
Second.
Thank you both. Any discussion on the agenda? Hearing none, Ms. Lemon, will you give us a roll call vote, please?
Director Bentley?
Aye.
Director Mash?
Aye.
Director Matthews?
Aye.
Director Mueller?
Aye.
Director Norwood?
Aye.
Director Pappas?
Aye.
Director Sullivan?
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you, Ms. Lemon. Next item on our agenda is to public hearing on the proposed 2022-2023 district budget. And just want to read a short introduction, and we welcome the regularly scheduled welcome to the regularly scheduled meeting of the Board of Education. Today is June 13th, 2022. Today we have scheduled a public hearing on the 2022-2023 budget for Weld County School District 6 pursuant to Colorado Revised Statute 2244-110. Any taxpayer residing in the public district is entitled to register his or her comments on the proposed budget with the Board of Education, either in writing or in person at the public hearing. And so we are doing that now, and we have one speaker tonight, and that's Ms. Sherry Fife. So welcome, Ms. Fife. And as usual, you have 3 minutes.
Perfect, thank you. Hopefully you won't take it all. So Sherry Fife, 3031 Quail Street, Evans, resident, District 6. In looking at the budget over the weekend, I tried to go through it as diligently as I can, and I just have a few concerns because of what you actually just brought up, President Matthews, with the MLO coming up, and I know we're going to be asking residents to approve that MLO again. And so I look at the budget and I see the first thing that really stuck out for me is in 2020, the ending general fund balance was just under $38 million. In 3 years since 2020, the ending fund balance has nearly doubled. We're looking at almost $70 million for an ending fund balance, general fund balance this year. And so I'm trying to figure out, I'm really trying to wrap my head around over $30 million as the ending general fund balance, where that money came from. When I look at pupil enrollment in District 6 over the last 6 years, it's been up and down. Some years it's up a couple hundred students, some years it's down a couple hundred students. So it's not due to massive growth. I know that. I'm glad we have the money, but when I think about the mill levy override, I'm trying to figure out just whether or not that mill levy override needs to be re-upped. Because at the same time that we have this additional money, the instructional staff support expenses are up 25.8%. School administration is up 14.8%. Business services are up 18.4%. We've been able to give out 6.5% raises the last 2 years to our teachers, which is great, and I'm okay with that. Para-retirement benefits are up. A teacher in this district or any staff member in this district making about $55,000 a year who's contributing $531 of their own money every given month, the district is contributing $1,034 for them. So while expenses have gone up greatly, so has the revenue in the district. So I just want, my biggest question is where all the extra money has come from. I know it's not ESSER funds because we have a fund that contains, and there's about $42 million in that needs to be spent by 2024. So I would really just like it addressed as to where the extra revenue is at and why it's still important for this mill levy override when our revenues continue to increase while our expenses are also increasing. And then my last concern about the budget is I noticed that District 6 is paying for 2 full-time employees for the Success Foundation. While the Success Foundation is important to this district, and there's no doubt about it, I'm curious why the district is paying for those. And I know the Success Foundation reimburses a portion of it, but does not reimburse all of it. And it seems a little bit of a conflict of interest to me if we're paying those salaries while they're supposed to be an independent organization. That would be it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Fife. Well, we are now to that budget adoption. And to begin our discussion, we'll need a motion.
I move that the Board of Education of Weld County School District 6 approves the proposed budget for the 2022-23 fiscal year. This includes a total appropriation of $593,082,914, the transfer of funds from the general fund, and the use of beginning fund balance where required, as presented in the proposed budget document.
Second.
Thank you both. Well, before we open this up for questions and comments from board members, Dr. Pilch, would you like to lead us off?
Thank you, President Matthews, members of the Board of Education. This is a big night for our agenda. You see the approval of the budget on here, as well as many items in the consent agenda that relate directly to this budget. Most of you have been able to sit down with Ms. Sponsor, our Chief Financial Officer, and me to actually review the budget. We've been working on this for several months. You had opportunity over the last several months for input into this. I'll just remind all of you and the public that our budget is really driven by our strategic plan, Innovation 2030. That is the work of the district and the demand of the district, and that drives the work that we do here in District 6. I will ask that Ms. Sponsor share responses to Ms. Pife's questions. I think those are great questions, and we're happy to respond to them tonight. And as I have indicated earlier, I'll reach out to you, Ms. Pife, and let's see if we can't get a meeting on the books so we can sit and go a little deeper on some of this. But I think Ms. Sponsor is prepared to answer those questions, and as well as am I, if you'd like to hear from your superintendent. So with that, I'm going to pass it to our Chief Financial Officer, who every year gets to prepare a document that looks more like a master's thesis or certainly maybe even a dissertation than an actual budget. But we are a large organization with lots of moving parts. And so you see those moving parts in print here in this document.
Thank you, Dr. Pilch. Good evening, President Matthews and members of the board. As Dr. Pilch said, we are bringing forward for your consideration and adoption the budget for the next fiscal year. The budget has been prepared using the best information that we have available at the time. So that of course means that we have to make some assumptions. Specifically, those assumptions have to do with enrollment and really our funding through the School Finance Act. Just to highlight a few things about the School Finance Act, This year, it was increased by 3.5%, which is what inflation was certified back in February of this year. I know that seems low compared to what we're all feeling in our pocketbooks and seeing on the news, but this is a lagging factor, and so that higher inflation rate will be felt next fiscal year when we adopt the budget. The School Finance Act also continued to buy down the budget stabilization factor. So the state legislature invested an additional $182 million to buy down that stabilization factor. They also increased substantially special education funding, and that will mean significant revenue to all districts across the state. As far as I'm aware, special education funding has not changed in the state of Colorado for as long as I've been in the district, so at least 15 years. So this is a welcome sign that the state is recognizing that students that need additional services actually do cost more to provide those services. So they are funding that program a little bit more than they have in the past. There were some other provisions in the School Finance Act that really are not financial in nature, but they were intended to provide some flexibility and some relief to school districts. I would say specifically our rural school districts where they need some of that flexibility. Overall, our per pupil funding is expected to increase by 7.2% for the district. And that will fluctuate a little bit as we actually have our student October count next fall, and we see what the true demographics of our students looks like. That will influence the budget in a positive or negative way. And of course, as usual, that budget will be reconciled and an amended budget, revised budget will be brought to you next January. For enrollment, we have built in an increase of about 200 funded students. So that is a small increase, but I think a reasonable increase to project. The total general fund budget is $269 million. And I would want to point out that 88% of that comes from the School Finance Act. So whatever happens at the state capitol directly influences what we can do with our budget. 8% of our revenue comes from our mill levy override, and then the remaining 4% is from a variety of sources, rent from when we rent out our facilities, to oil and gas royalties that we own, those kinds of things. On the expense side, 79% of the budget goes to pay for salaries and benefits. And this year, our salaries were increased by 6.5% for our teachers and classified and APT staff. We also had some increases, as Ms. Pike mentioned, the increase in para. Para continues to escalate every year, so that is quite a hefty price tag. And then, of course, health insurance, and those benefits just don't get any cheaper.
Ms. Sponsor, could you address who sets the para amount, please?
Absolutely. So para is actually written in state law, and so the state legislature every year has to pass legislation on what that contribution rate looks like. I think it was 2 years ago that they passed legislation to kind of build in this, they call it an automatic adjustment provision, so that based on how well the fund is performing, that will either influence an increase in contributions would stay flat, or in the best case scenario, contributions could actually decline. So that has been set in state statute, and as a public employer, we have to participate in para. Let's see. We also continue to provide transfers from our general operating fund into our capital reserve fund, our nutrition services fund, our preschool program fund, and the Platte Valley Youth Services Fund. And this is where I'll talk a little bit about the fund balance. We do have a healthy fund balance that has grown just recently, fairly significantly, I will say. And the explanation behind that is really that coincides directly with COVID. And so when COVID hit, we as a district made some very painful, some of you remember, budget cuts. We made some cuts to staff. We cut budgets across the district. And then, as a result of COVID, we did not do a lot of the things that we normally would have done. So we didn't take field trips, we didn't have after-school programs, we didn't have co-curricular activities. So that generated quite a bit of savings in our budget. At the same time, we had this influx of money from the federal government to help offset some of the costs related to COVID. At the time the budget was set, we had no idea really what would happen with funding, either from the federal government, from the state. We were prepared for the worst, and I think that was prudent to be prepared for the worst. And fortunately, we benefited in that our fund balance was able to grow. I will point out that that is one-time money, so once that is spent, it's gone. So putting that into staff that would be an ongoing expense is a little dangerous. It would be best used for one-time expenditures, large purchases, things like that. And the other thing I want to point out there is, while it looks like a big number, that number really only covers our operating expenses for about 2 months. So that kind of puts that into perspective a little bit. As for the grants fund, we did have a huge influx of money from ESSER and CRF and all of those various relief programs that were offered. As a district, we so far have been allocated about $82 million in federal grants. And so far we have spent about 40 million of those grants. So we have approximately 42 million that we still need to spend. We have 2 years to spend those dollars, and then that money is gone. So looking forward, we need to be prepared for either cutting those activities or those people or whatever we're funding with those dollars. Or ideally, we could look at using some of that fund balance to help stretch that out so that the impact is not felt immediately and could help us sustain a little bit longer. The bond redemption fund, that accounts for our newest bond issue that we sold last July. And so ongoing, we have principal and interest payments every year of about $27 million. That goes on for the next 23 to 25 years, depending on which bond issue it is. And then really the other big fund, aside from our general fund, is our building fund. And you all have seen the schools and the projects that we are building, the deferred maintenance that we are finally being able to address. All of those things are adding up, and eventually that fund will be spent out as well. So it feels like we have a lot of money, but it is truly right now that we have that money, and long term we just need to have some sustained revenue. So with that, I would ask if you have any questions that I can try to answer for you.
I bet we might have some, the sponsor. Ms. Mash.
I don't believe that I have any questions, but I just wanted to talk about this document that we have that is 230 some pages. It is an excellent way to get to know the district. Ms. Sponsor includes lots of demographic information, not only just district-wide, but also school by school. You can see how many FTEs, how many students, how many kids are in what seats, as well as she did include a page on the mill levy override, which I believe might be new this year, on page 43. It delineates all the things that the mill levy has covered, all of the different programs, people, technology, buses, etc. And it also shows how that revenue has been generated over time, and talks about when that will sunset. So if numbers or budget is not your thing, it actually is very easy to read and to go to the different headings. There's lots of graphs that, whichever way you might want to digest the information. But if you want to just learn a lot about our programs and our district and our student population, this is kind of everything in one place. So thank you very much for the work that you put into it and for helping us to be able to understand it.
Ms. Mash. Ms. Pappas.
I just want to build off of what Ms. Mash was just talking about. First of all, thank you so much for this comprehensive overview of our district. And I also appreciate the alignment with the I-2030 strategic plan that makes our focus of what we're doing in this district have a larger impact, I believe. I did notice, and interestingly, on the school enrollment projections, it's on page 27, just the adding Toynton to the mix, noticing that N.K. Hyman numbers are decreasing, which is really great. I think that will be a huge benefit for N.K. Hyman, and also Montfort. Is that also, and I believe that's also because of Toynton.
Yes, that's true.
And those are the only two schools that I noticed a real impact from Toynton. Is that accurate?
That is accurate.
Okay, I appreciated that look, and just thank you to you and all your staff. I know that you didn't do this alone, but I know that you are the guiding factor, so thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Pappas. Ms. Mueller.
So yes, I also want to echo how comprehensive this document is and how it answers most of our questions. The one thing I guess I have a question on, which I think is an art form truly, is how to project student enrollment. What do you use as sort of your framework for making those kinds of projections?
That's a great question. So I use a lot of trend data, and I look at trends and I look at what's happening not only as kids enter the school system, but the birth rate data, those kinds of things, so we can see where those bubbles might be. So it is kind of a science, kind of an art, something that I have just kind of gotten to learn and to know as I've been here. But I feel like I have a reasonable estimate that I can put into this document and feel comfortable basing our revenue off of these projections.
Okay. And then I have a question that's probably potentially more for you, Dr. Pilch, and it's that we are constantly hearing about the need to attract and retain teachers and staff. And so one of the things I want voters to understand is how very, very appreciative and impactful the MLO dollars have been in increasing salaries. And have we been able to do a better job of attracting staff and increasing salaries and some of those things to make us at parity with other districts around us?
Thank you for that question. So, yes, in that we are competitive in the market. And yes, there is a teacher shortage throughout the nation and in the state of Colorado. So although we've made significant strides in pay and compensation across all of our employee groups, we still have big work to do around making sure that we are ahead of our competitors in attracting employees. We did add a position in human resources. You may have noticed in the budget that is intended to primarily focus on attracting and hiring and retaining employees. I will just remind you that the mill levy override dollars have been, because you mentioned the mill levy override, have been significant in increasing our hourly employees' pay. Every hourly employee is impacted by mill levy override dollars. So if those dollars went away, that would impact not only those employees, but very likely impact class size as well.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions, comments from board members? Mr. Bentley.
Yeah, I just wanted to note, I think you mentioned that per pupil, the enrollment's averaged, right, over 5 years?
Yes.
Or we can average that.
Yes, that is true.
So it kind of levels that out. The spikes up and down they kind of play out. But the other thing is the community we live in, they brag about, Weld County's pretty proud of the fact that they run off of all cash. And so on my end of the world, and from my point of view, running my own finances, my own business, I don't think we have enough extra revenue. I think everybody's under extra funds. I think everybody's under the opinion that nothing's going to get cheaper anytime sooner, and rates and wages. You start talking about a raise on 3,000 teachers, that jumps substantially really fast. Each percent is a lot of money. So thank you for all this, and I'm glad that we are in a position where we're not running by our shoestrings and in trouble if there was something that came up. I'm glad we have a cushion. as little as it is. You take the MLO out and it's gone in a year or two, so pretty easy math.
Thank you, Mr. Bentley. I'll just point out that when I first came to the district, our reserves were what I would consider to be fairly slim. And it was those years in which we had years of freezing teacher salaries, and then coming back and giving raises and then freezing salaries. And so a part of, and there were years they spent in the reserves to be able to give teachers a raise. I mean, ideally, as Ms. Sponsor mentioned earlier, you don't want to have to use your reserves to pay ongoing expenses. Now, to be fair, once we get through all this COVID world and all the federal grant dollars that have come in with COVID, if we continue to see a reserve this high, we will look very closely at what is the reserve we really need to carry, and should we be using some of these reserve dollars for other expenses in the district. But I'll just remind you all of our Meeker Elementary School and the flood at that school. And that was millions of dollars out of operating dollars that we had to front in order to displace those students to another property, to bring portables onto that property, to provide additional transportation, and then ultimately to repair that school. And so that's really what your reserves are about, is about a catastrophe. Or if the state would come in and do a 1-year significant cut like they did 4 years ago, we would feel confident right now that we wouldn't have to make a $10 million cut for that 1 year, that we could spend into the reserves for that year. So we're watching this very carefully. I appreciate the question earlier. It's a question that we talk about a lot, and what is that right amount to carry in those reserves?
How do we look compared to comparable districts? Are we high, average, low on as far as reserves or surplus?
We would have to pull that information. Ms. Sponsor, do you have some of that?
I have access to that information, so I can give you more specifics, but I believe that we are on the low end of average with comparable sized districts.
No red flags then?
Some districts have a significant fund balance, and to me, that's where I would start questioning, why aren't they spending this money and using some of that fund balance? There is a cap set in state law, and some districts are actually hitting that cap.
Yeah, I'm aware of 2 districts that hit that cap of state law in their reserves. They're districts incomparable or a little bit larger than us. But we can pull that information for the board.
Thank you.
Ms. Sponsor, I don't think you answered the Success Foundation
I did
funding
not.
question. Do you want to
So
take
I can
it?
answer that
Okay,
question
thanks.
and chime in if you would like to add anything. But we do have an arrangement with the Success Foundation where we pay a portion of the director's salary and a portion of their office manager's salary. We brought them into the district primarily because they were needing benefits, and to be a 2-person entity and trying to purchase benefits, health insurance for 2 people is just cost prohibitive. And so bringing them into the district, putting them on our payroll, allowed them to have access to benefits. That allowed us to retain a strong leader at the Success Foundation. Over time, the amount of funding that has come into the Success Foundation has just exponentially increased. And so to me, this is an enormous return on investment that we are getting as a benefit from helping to pay for those salaries.
And on the academic and side of the house, so grants that are not federal grants, so grants that are local grants or state of Colorado grants that are not associated with the Colorado Department of Ed, grants like the Well Trust grants, Daniels Fund grants, Betcher Family grants, the Colorado Succeeds grant, the work with Chevron, the work with PDC. So their executive director at the Success Foundation writes all of those grants for us. And so she is actually working directly for us, and then we flow those dollars through the Success Foundation. So it's, when they came to us having this need, we said, well, we have a need also, and that is for one person to take on all these other grants. Because prior to that, we were parsing that out to multiple people or contracting with an individual for grant writing. And so it's been a great partnership. It's a great question to ask. But I think it's also an example of us coming together as part of that strengthening partnerships in our strategic plan of how do we better work together to leverage resources that benefit all children in District 6.
they only raise funds for the district too, right? I mean, they are a separate entity and they're 501c3, right? They're not for
Correct.
profit. So
Right.
it's not like somebody's patting their pocketbooks and, right.
That's correct. They are a nonprofit 501c3, and they're a small operation, as Ms.
But they only
Spencer
work
said.
with District 6?
Oh, yeah, they're
Right,
only the foundation of District 6. And I will tell you that they are so good at what they do that we recently had another organization approach us, and Ms. Hill asking if we would be willing to have her come in under their organization and do work for other school districts like she does for us. And so her work is admired and is sought after, and it is to everyone's advantage in District 6 to have her a part of our team.
Any other questions, guys? While you're thinking of some, I had one, Ms. Sponsler. You start out in the introduction of this budget, and again, I would echo what Ms. Mash said. This is just such an excellent document for anybody that wants to understand the district and wants to know any number in the district. It is in here. If you want to know the number of GT kids at Centennial, it's there. If you want to know, again, any financial number is there. So I appreciate just the comprehensive look at the district this document provides. But you start out talking about the budget stabilization factor, and that it grew to 1,173.5 billion, and I'm not sure if that's the way that's supposed to be written, but again, I think that's appropriate because it seems like the budget stabilization factor drives so much of our conversation tonight in terms of, those years when teachers weren't given raises, those years when those funds were our funds were so low and our reserve funds were so low. Can you just tell us what that is and the impact that it's had on this district over the last decade?
Absolutely. I know this is a favorite topic of yours, President Matthews, but the budget stabilization factor came into play in 2010 when the state was going through the economic downturn, just like the rest of the nation. And so they needed a way to balance the state's budget, basically, is what this does. And so they created this factor that subtracts out from the per pupil funding an amount to help balance the state's budget. That has gone up and down over time. It was exceedingly high, over $1 billion at one point. Then it was bought down, as the state refers to it. Then it went back up during COVID. And now we're back down to a fairly manageable amount. I am under the impression and the understanding that the state legislature would really like to just pay this off and be done with it. And initially they had a goal of doing that next fiscal year. I think with the rate of inflation, that's a little bit in question at this point to see if they can afford to do that. The issue is not that they don't have the money for a one-time buy down, but just being able to sustain that over time. That's a significant investment that they would have to make and have revenue coming into the state consistently to pay for that over time. For the district, since the inception of this budget stabilization factor, cumulatively, that has meant basically a budget cut of $238.5 million to the district. So that is substantial over the course of the past 12 years.
Thank you, Ms. Sponsler. Dr. Bilge, I had a question, I think for you probably, and it's regards Twainton, like what is the financial impact of overall on the system? I know we got into that a little bit as it pertains to student counts and where the students go, but I assume we have to hire more custodians and just people to support that school.
We do, and I'm hoping Ms. Sponsor's turning to that page as I start. Yes, so ideally, some of that expense shifts, right? As you pull students off of Hyman, the teacher FTE at Hyman comes down. And so ideally, some of that would shift, but in no way did we shift enough students to a new school, and you never do, to actually cover the costs at that school. So that's a part of this new budget, is building in for the additional staff at the Toynton Academy. So you may remember that we hired Justin Ungerhauer as the principal mid-year, and so that half of the year was out of last year's budget, and we had budgeted for that in the previous year. And then, then we added 2 assistant principals, and so those are new FTE as well. A school counselor is new FTE, an office manager, and all of the custodial crew is new FTE. So none of those positions would transfer off of other buildings. Kitchen workers and nutrition service workers would not transfer off of other buildings. And then the total teacher count is what I'm going to refer to Ms. Sponsler.
So we have approximately 40 certified staff that we are paying for. So while you can pull some FTE out of other buildings as student counts go down, it certainly is not a wash. And so that adds additional cost. Aside from Toynton, the other thing I would say is as we build bigger buildings, so Greeley West, for example, we've added a ton of square footage. And so that does require additional custodians, nutrition workers, all of those kinds of support staff people, just to keep those facilities operating.
And you may remember that when we discussed budget in the work session earlier this spring, we actually had Toynton on there and the total cost that, the new cost that was with Toynton Academy.
Thank you. One last question, and it's, I noticed when I'm looking at FTE and what program is getting more FTE, what program is getting less FTE, I always try to pay attention to that. And I noticed like Gear Up, we're losing FTE out of Gear Up, and there's more FTE for dedicated to the READ Act. And so what I'm assuming is that's grant money. And so can you just speak to the importance of grant money and how that that shapes our budget a little bit?
I sure can, and in a district that has a population that is high English language learners or high students who qualify for free and reduced lunch, you're going to see even more of a reliance on grant dollars and more of a benefit from grant dollars, particularly federal grant dollars. So the Gear Up program is a federal grant program, and unfortunately, our grant for Gear Up was not renewed. And we got a perfect score on the grant application, and so we're an alternate, so we're still holding out hope as a possibility for that program and for those people. Those are real people who have been working with students, but as their class of students graduate, we were not approved to begin a new class in middle school. So I suspect that federally what occurred is that they needed the dollars for programs that still had kids who were being served at those upper grade levels, whereas we have students graduating, and so we are losing those dollars. But we're still holding out hope on that. But you can see it's $1 million or so, I believe, and so we did not feel at this time that we would shift those $1 million. But I will tell you that I've already talked to Ms. Sponsler about the possibility, if that grant does not come through, are there possibilities of us being able to somehow be able to shift dollars to be able to pay for that Gear Up program to continue? But we're still waiting on the feds, and it'll be later this summer before they would release any additional dollars or any notification for additional dollars. The READ Act dollars too are actually funneled to us through state grant dollars, but they are a part of the federal READ Act legislation, and we are receiving additional dollars in READ Act due to the fact that we're serving more students here in District 6. And Ms. Sponsor, what else would you add?
We also wrote a local grant in partnership with the Success Foundation again to fund 3 additional READ Act positions. So that is another way how the Success Foundation partners with us to help us meet our needs.
And those dollars were from the Weld Trust?
Yes.
Yeah.
But we're pretty satisfied with our Gear Up. It's just a matter of securing federal grant money.
Oh, yes.
All right.
Yeah, that's a huge loss, and we're still holding out a lot of hope. We got a perfect score, so.
Any other questions, comments from board members? All right. Well, thank you, Dr. Phillips. Thank you, Ms. Sponsler. I think we're ready to vote on the budget. So, Ms. Lemon, will you give us a vote, please?
Director Bentley?
Aye.
Director Mash?
Aye.
Director Matthews?
Aye.
Director Mueller?
Aye.
Director Norwood?
Aye.
Director Pappas?
Aye.
Director Sullivan?
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you, Ms. Lemon. Our next item on the agenda is Project Teacher Fine Recognition. And again, Dr. Pilch, I will hand this to you to start us off.
Well, I am really excited to have this opportunity tonight to take this. You all talked earlier this evening about some of the feedback from the community sessions, and one of those pieces in there that resonated with many of you was the importance of attracting and hiring and retaining quality staff and building a pipeline of staff. And so we have been fortunate enough, yay, come on up. We have been fortunate enough to have yet another scholarship awarded to us in District 6 for another Project Teacher Find student. So we have another District 6 graduate, so that's 2 this year. We're very excited to have, who is committing to University of Northern Colorado and hopefully committing to come back to District 6 as a teacher. Yes. So, Mrs. Overton, would you talk about our guest here tonight, please?
Yes. Welcome. Thank you. Each year, we receive one scholarship to award to a talented student who has demonstrated their interest in choosing teaching as a career. This year, extra funding was available to provide one additional $2,500 scholarship. Last month, I presented to you a Project Teacher Find recipient who was selected by the committee of UNC and District 6 committee employees who were on the committee. Tonight, I'm here to share that we have one more student who has earned a scholarship for each of her 4 years as she attends UNC. And I would like to introduce to you Whitley Morales. Whitley is a recent graduate from Greeley West High School and will be attending University of Northern Colorado in the fall. Whitley aspires to be a special education teacher. In her spare time, Whitley enjoys spending time with her friends and family and anything outside. She loves to travel and she's very excited for this next chapter of her life. Her hope is to make positive difference in people's lives the way hers has been impacted through her years in high school, largely due to the special education students at Greeley West, who spread joy everywhere they go. She's learned a lot from students and plans to give that joy back to future students once she becomes an elementary special education teacher. Leading the unified PE class has shown her the true passion she has for teaching young people as they grow through life. Students and Greeley West have inspired her to pursue a special education degree in college. Being a teacher doesn't mean planning lessons or summers off for Whitley. It means making a difference in kids' lives and making memories they will always cherish. Thank you. Thank you. You bet. And Mr. Matthews, President Matthews, would you come up and present our certificate?
Yes, she will.
Stand right up.
Thank you, Ms. Overton. Thank you for being here tonight, Whitley. We certainly appreciate your presence and your dedication to the district. Next item is our public participation. And the board welcomes comments of community members and has dedicated this portion of each business meeting agenda to provide opportunity for the community to present brief comments to the board. The board typically does not engage in discussion or provide immediate response to the input, but will ask district staff to respond as appropriate. Written testimony or speaker handouts must be submitted to Ms. Amy Lemon, our board secretary, not to individual board members. The board is committed to providing a safe environment where all members of our school community are treated with dignity and respect, and expects all speakers to exercise their speech rights responsibly. Speakers will be heard in the order in which they signed up. Comments are limited to 3 minutes. And tonight we have first Ms. Sherry Pife.
It seems like every time I speak to you guys, it's twice in one night because you set your agenda that way. So all I've ever asked for from this board for the 25, 30 years I've been doing this is transparency. That is why I ask the questions I ask. Thank you for answering them. Dr. Pilch, you have done an amazing job since you've been here. I've said that 1,000 times and I continue to support that. So now what I would like is more transparency. I would request that you pull from the consent agenda a few items that I'm a little concerned about as to exactly what they are. One of them would be topic number 3, the contract for Franklin. Topic number 4, the contract for Northridge. And then there are 3 zero dropout contracts, number 6, number 18, and number 19, that I would like some more information on. Mostly because when looking at these contracts, the zero dropout contracts, I question whether or not there's some duplicated services there with employees that are already paid for in the district. And I also question these 18 and 19 are paid for with ESSER funds. So I'm curious what happens when the ESSER funds run out, if this is a program that we will look to our general fund in order to continue to pay for, and how that will look. And then the only other thing that I wanted to discuss or let you know, and you discussed it in your work session tonight, and that is the appointment of a replacement board member when and if that should happen. I would hope that this board goes back to what I just said a minute ago, transparency and open and fair appointment. We all know that rumors run rampant in this community when anything happens and when anything takes place, and those rumors are already beginning to start. And so I would just ask to remember that all 7 of you were elected and are normally elected. So an appointment process to me is even more important. You're putting somebody on the board that you have to work with that the general electorate did not get a chance to vote on and did not get a say in it. And regardless of where people ended up in the last election in vote count, whether they had the most votes or the least amount of votes, that was a group of 10 people who ran against each other in that election. If we put 10 different people up or 7 different people up with 3 people that were in the last election, who knows what the public would vote on now. So I hope that when you, and if that does come to pass, that you have to replace one of yourselves in the near future, that it is completely open, completely fair, completely transparent, and then we look to appointing somebody the same way that we appointed Ms. Nash when she first came to this board, and that's through an application process and an interview process. Other than that, my biggest concern is the consent agenda items. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Pife. Our next speaker tonight is Ms. Sonia Miller. Welcome, Ms. Miller.
Hello, Board Superintendent Pilch. Let's get started with the meeting we just had upstairs. That is a public meeting. That should actually be taking place in this boardroom where we can see all of your faces and not your backs, where we have microphones and we can hear you, and you're not sitting in a circle, and we can hear what's going on. We can't hear everybody talking. Not everybody speaks loud enough. And there's no mics at all this time in that meeting upstairs. Why is that? And whose decision was it to make that just an audio recording and not a video recording that could easily be put on the YouTube channel just like these board meetings are? Who's responsible for that decision? Mash, you wanted to know, when you're in the work session upstairs, you said some parents think decisions should be left to the parents. And you want to know how you are to balance that responsibility with providing a safe and healthy environment for our children. We know how to do that. You backed off. We don't need this vaccine. We don't need this tests. We don't need any of this COVID nonsense ever again. You guys masked our kids for money. You know you did. You can deny it all you want, but it's in the contract. Diversity all means all. All means all. So, Pappas, when you say, I want to focus on communities of color, that's not all, is it? Anytime you make something about race, anytime you specifically state make something a racial issue, you are making it a race issue. All of you who talk about people of color, stop. White's a color too. And you can't talk about all means all and diversity and inclusion while you're excluding a certain color. And if we're talking about a budget, let's talk about a budget. Why does Ms. Pilch make $286,000 a year? That's an 848% increase. That's a higher, 840% higher than any other income in this district is hers. 848% higher than anybody else in District 6. You guys don't care about kids. You're not working for kids. You're working for money. You're masking our kids for money. You're taking money from the federal government. You're taking money from all these grant programs. I never hear you talk about the kids other than the ones of color. Let's focus on the kids. Rob Norwood, he talks about kids. Sullivan talks about kids. The rest of you talk about money and grants and how to keep things secret from the public. Why are we still holding work session meetings in the upstairs meeting room when we have this boardroom capable of all of this? Why are we still doing it? And who made the decision to just have it audio? We don't know who's speaking when you're doing that, and it's intentional. You're not being transparent. 666, Pastor. It's in our district logo. We've been asking for you to take it out of our district logo for many, many, many months now. Please take 666 out of our district logo.
Next, we have our superintendent. Our work session report. So Ms. Lemon, will you give us our work session report, please?
The Board of Education opened the work session with comments and reports from each board member and reviewed upcoming events. Legal counsel Nathan Fall presented information regarding the Board of Education member appointment process should a vacancy occur. Board members and Superintendent Pilch invested the remainder of the work session reviewing feedback from recent community listening sessions and identifying themes within the collected responses.
Thank you, Ms. Lemon. Now we're to our superintendent's report. So Dr. Pilch, I will gladly hand it to you for your report.
Thank you, President Matthews. I have a few notes here I'd like to share. First, I want to just remind everyone that this was our last board meeting of the school year, and we won't come back together until August 8th. However, we will have the school kickoff event on August 6th at Island Grove, and this is the big event where families may come and get a backpack and other school supplies for every student in the school district. That event will begin this year earlier than it has in past years, or end earlier. Ms. Myers, it's 9 to noon? It's been 9 to 1 in the past, but we are ending at noon this time around because there is another event at the Island Grove Park. We will do much of that event indoors this time, so it's going to look a little different for vendors and families, but maybe get people out of the hot sun. But we're looking forward to that. Again, that is Saturday, August 6th, and then our next board meeting will be on August 8th. I have the privilege tonight to introduce some of our newest administrators to the district. And you all have seen these bios before, but I'm excited to introduce them. The first woman, Veronica Lucero, was not able to be with us tonight. She's the new assistant principal at Martinez Elementary. She began her program, or actually her career, working in human resources, and had served in several administrative assistant and secretarial roles. And then she began as a secretary at one of our elementary schools, and then she moved to Dos Rios and transitioned as a classroom teacher. So talk about growing your own teachers, although I don't know that we want to pluck them from our secretarial ranks, but she really is someone who has grown up in our system and went from working on the front lines in the front office to becoming a classroom teacher, where she worked at Dos for 9 years. And then most recently, she was a co-teaching coach here in the district and for the past 3 years. And she obtained her Bachelor's of Arts in Elementary Ed from the University of Northern Colorado. See what can happen by getting a bachelor's at UNC, right? That means you might become an assistant principal or principal one day. And then she continued with her master's in ed leadership, and she is currently working on her educational doctorate degree in ed leadership. So we look forward to having Ms. Lucero move into that role upon your approval tonight, and look forward to her future as she finishes her doctorate degree as well. So we have someone we are welcoming back to our school district, Miss Catherine Green. Kate, if you would stand up and give us all a wave, please. Hi, Kate. Welcome back. So Kate will be serving as Assistant Director in Special Education. I think you all are aware that Ricky Boucher is leaving us to go to be the Executive Director at Salida del Sol Academy, which left an opening for us to be able to bring Kate back into the district. And, you know, Kate was here in the district for some time where she served in the educational role as a teacher, a coach, and left us as a coordinator in special education and went to St. Vrain Valley School District, where she served as a principal for the last 5 years. And now she is back to serve us as an assistant director in special education. I had the privilege of calling my superintendent friend in St. Vrain and just to check in, Kate, and say, you know, she's been gone 5 years. Anything I need to be aware of? And he said, oh, she is a wonderful woman and an amazing person, and she is a leader we're going to really regret losing. So thank you for coming back, Kate. Kate earned her bachelor's in special ed from the State University of Florida. She then went on to obtain her master's in special education with a focus in deaf education from the University of Northern Colorado. And she too is currently working on her doctorate degree at the University of Colorado, Denver. So welcome back, Kate. Pending our board approval tonight, we are so pleased to welcome you back here into District 6. And then we have a new assistant principal who is joining us tonight. And Paula, where are you? I think I saw you come in. And I will tell you, Paula was already working last week. She participated in the consensus work last week with her team from Bella Romero. So it was fun to see you there, Paula. And I've lost my notes, so I'm going to be winging it here in a moment, it would seem. But Paula is joining at the 4-8 campus as assistant principal, and I see Ashley, her principal, is there sitting with her. We are excited to have Paula come in. She has been serving as a 3rd grade teacher at Centennial Elementary and recently was promoted to behavior specialist and dean of students at Winona Elementary in 2007, which is a neighboring school district. So she too is returning to District 6. She has 8 years of educational experience and is coming back to us at Bella Romero. Welcome back, Paula. Did you stand up and give everybody a wave? And Ms. Kurbanski has obtained a bachelor's in kinesiology sciences at the University of Maryland. And then she continued her learning by earning a Master's of Arts in Teaching from the University of Northern Colorado, and then a K-12 certification from Lamar University. And pending your approval tonight, Paula is pleased and excited and has really, I have to tell you, already joined the staff at Bella Romero, as was evidenced last week. And then finally, I'm so excited, and this one's a little bittersweet, as we welcome Jessica Cooney as assistant principal at Greeley Central High School. So Jessica, I think everyone knows you, but if not, will you please just stand and wave a little bit here? Thank you, Jessica. All right, I've officially lost my notes, so it's a good thing that we've made it to you, Jessica. So the reason I said this one is kind of bittersweet, guys, is Jessica is leaving us as the coordinator in the English Language Development Department, and after doing such amazing work there, and leaving us to go get another experience because she's just not sure if one day she might want to be a principal or a superintendent of schools, and felt like she needed to go get she's shaking her head, no, felt like she needed to go get some building experience in order to prepare for the possibility of doing something more other than just working at the district level. I think you all are aware of the work that we've done around co-teaching and how significant that work has been in the last several years. And Jessica has been critical to helping to lead that work in co-teaching. And we're just so excited to have her take that expertise to the building level and to do that work there at Greeley Central High School. Jessica has been in the district, I think 14 or so years-ish. 20 years in the district? Oh, I was making you younger than you are, Jessica. But she obtained her bachelor's also in kinesiology and physical education at the University of Northern Colorado, and then continued with her master's in culturally and linguistically diverse education, also from UNC, and then recently received her principal license endorsement from Western Governors University. And we're just really excited to have Jessica moving to Central not so excited to have her leaving the work at the district level. Those are big shoes to fill, but I hope you all are seeing a couple of themes here, which is bringing people up from within our system, and also people who leave us and then come back, which says this is a great place to be. And sometimes we have to leave to spread our wings and check out the grass on the other side, and then realize the grass isn't always greener, and it's okay to come back. And I also want to just share that with each of these hires, we continue to grow our District 6 team, and in many cases, they leave a blank spot behind them that also has to be filled and to bring somebody back up. And so our future teachers should know that most people who become other things in education at one time were possibly a teacher. And I want to give a big shout out to the University of Northern Colorado. I don't know that we say enough how important it is that we have a university right here in our background. And as you hear, every one of these candidates has been impacted by the University of Colorado. And I just think we are so fortunate to have such an outstanding college of education right here in our backyard, and to allow us to be able to draw those candidates here into District 6. So congratulations to all of you, and thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Pilch. Now to our consent agenda, and so we'll need a motion to move forward.
I move that the Board of Education of Greeley Evans School District 6 approves items as presented on the consent agenda and authorizes the officers to sign any and all contracts.
Second.
Thank you both. Ms. Sullivan.
Yeah, I am moving to remove 8.02, 8.03, 8.04, and 8.05 from the consent.
Thank you, Ms. Sullivan. We're removing 8.02, 8.03, 8.04, and 8.05. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Any other comment or question on the consent agenda? Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Norwood. Your button is hidden behind my screen.
Thank you. I would like to pull out 18 and 19 from the consent agenda, if I could, please.
Okay. So we'll get 2 through 5 and then 18 and 19 removed from our consent agenda and move to our regular agenda. Was there anything else we needed to remove from consent? All right, I'm not hearing anything. So Ms. Lemon, will you give us a vote on this consent agenda minus those items we've removed?
We need a second.
Not to remove. So,
Director Bentley?
Aye.
Director Mash?
Aye.
Director Matthews?
aye.
Director Mueller?
Aye.
Director Norwood?
Aye.
Director Pappas?
Aye.
Director Sullivan?
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you, Ms. Lemon. And Ms. Lemon, where will you put these new items on our agenda?
Would you like them to follow next in the board priorities?
That is fine.
They should be at the end of the agenda, Ms. Lemon.
Okay, into the agenda. Our next item then is adoption on policy EHAA, cybersecurity operations. This is an action item that will need a motion.
I move to adopt policy EHAA, cybersecurity operations as presented.
Second.
Thank you both. Any questions on this? Well, before we have questions, Dr. Pilch, is there anything you would like to say? We've seen this several board meetings now, so hopefully those who are following along at home are familiar with this policy and our need for it, but is there anything else you would like to say?
I have nothing additional to add. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else, comments or questions from board members on this particular policy? Again, this is our second read, and we dealt extensively with this at our last board meeting. Seeing none, Ms. Lemon, will you give us a vote, please?
Director Bentley?
Aye.
Director Mash?
Aye.
Director Matthews?
Aye.
Director Mueller?
Aye.
Director Norwood?
Aye.
Director Pappas?
Aye.
Director Sullivan?
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you, Ms. Lemon. Next on our agenda is to designate an election official, and this is also an action item that needs a motion.
I move that the Board of Education of Greeley Evans School District 6 designates Amy Lemon as the district election official and Lindsay Richards as the alternate election official for the November 2022 election.
Second.
Thank you both. Any discussion on this item? Hearing none. Ms. Lemon.
Director Bentley?
Aye.
Director Mash?
Aye.
Director Matthews?
Aye.
Director Mueller?
Aye.
Director Norwood?
Aye.
Director Pappas?
Aye.
Director Sullivan?
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you, Ms. Lemon. Next item on the agenda is Jefferson High School 4-day proposal. And this, too, is an action item that needs a motion.
I move to approve the Jefferson High School 4-day school week as presented.
Second.
Thank you both. Dr. Pilch, I imagine this is one we're going to want to slow down and have some discussion on, or at least some explanation on. And so I will give it over to you to begin this.
Thank you, President Matthews. You all received an update that this proposal might be coming in a memo from me here a few weeks ago. Since that time, I've asked Mr. Anthony Osmus, Assistant Superintendent, and Mr. Larry Green, Principal at Jefferson, to prepare a presentation for you tonight around their proposal to go to a 4-day week. I do want to share that, just a reminder that Jefferson High School is an alternative high school here in our district, and Anthony will get into this a little bit more, but you know, we looked at the 4-day week in our time and learning committee that came out of negotiations, and out of that committee, the recommendation was that we not pursue a 4-day week district-wide. So I just want to be really clear up front here that this isn't about opening that door to trying to go to a 4-day week across the system. This really is about responding to some needs within an alternative school setting. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Assistant Superintendent, Mr. Osmus, and I think Mr. Green, you may want to get closer to the podium, please, and whomever else you have with you. So thank you for being here tonight.
So, good evening, President Matthews, members of the board, and Dr. Pilch. Thank you for allowing us to present this 4-day school week proposal from Jefferson High School. I'm joined this evening by Mr. Larry Green, principal at Jefferson High School, and by Bev Anderson, who teaches CLD at Jefferson. So thank you for being here. As always, we are grounded in our mission and our vision, where our mission reads, District 6 engages every student in a personalized, well-rounded, and excellent education, preparing students to be college and career ready. In our vision, District 6 engages, empowers, and inspires today's students in partnership with families and communities to succeed in tomorrow's world. We have many values, but as we come here tonight, we're going to talk about how our students come first, and we know every child can succeed. Dr. Pilch started with, what is an alternative school? So an alternative school is a school that doesn't always provide the typical education experience. Another way to think of an alternative school is that it's designed to educate students who haven't been successful in regular schools, sometimes due to behavior issues, learning disabilities, social or emotional needs, students seeking a smaller environment, sometimes learning a new language. This 4-day proposal is for Jefferson High School only and would match the week schedule for GAP and NEXT that already exists in a 4-day schedule Monday through Thursday, and better meet the needs of our students at Jefferson High School. It is grounded in our Innovation 2030 work of increasing graduation, where our goal is by 2027, we'll have 90% of our students graduating on time. So a little bit about Jefferson High School. Currently, Jefferson offers a full-day program 5 days a week, very similar to our 3 comprehensive high schools. However, Jefferson offers accelerated quarters, which means that each quarter is a semester, and each semester is actually a year-long class. This benefits the majority of students, but it's still not enough for the students that are considerably behind. Many that attend Jefferson transferred from one of our comprehensive high schools behind in credits and are working very hard to catch up. For some, and for example, they transfer as sophomores or even juniors, sometimes with 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 credits, and need that accelerated program to be able to graduate on time. Our attendance at Jefferson is not where we'd like it to be, and some students do feel the need to work. During student interviews, when we were considering this program, this proposal, students commented that they would better attend school 4 days per week if they knew they had 3 full days to work. Additionally, students favored the 4-day week option with school support on Fridays, where teachers would be available rather than the current system of Saturday school. Also, as we discussed this with Larry and other people from Jefferson High School, field trips and to college campuses and career exploration trips would also be on Fridays rather than pulling the students out of the week. This proposal would support students both in the area of employment and academic support. So our graduation this last year at Jefferson was 56%. This year, we may get to 56%. The proposed 4-day schedule, Monday through Thursday, would offer 6 classes during the day rather than the 5 to allow our students a greater opportunity for acceleration. This would allow each student to earn an additional 0.5 credits per quarter, which equals 1 additional credit per semester, and 2 credits per year more than what they can with the 5-period schedule. With more opportunity to earn credits, students can remain at Jefferson to graduate on time. As a result of this 4-day proposal, we would also offer academic support on Fridays rather than Saturdays, which was a big draw. And then daycare, as always, will remain open for all 5 days of the week. As you can see, the current 5-day schedule offers 5 classes daily with a start time of 8 o'clock a.m. and an end time of 3:30 p.m. The proposed 4-day schedule has a start time of 8 o'clock a.m. and a dismissal of 4:45 p.m. For teachers, the 4-day schedule contains the same number of instructional minutes for students as the 5-day schedule. In addition, teacher contract hours are the same in the 4-day schedule as they were in the 5-day schedule. There was overwhelming support for this proposal. Students were all in favor when polled. There were no negative comments. Parent feedback was very supportive, and all returning teachers supported the proposal at Jefferson High School. Daycare, as we stated, daycare will always be provided all week long just to support those students who come on Fridays. And so then our young moms in our community will still have access to the daycare. And then our high school calendar, we still have the way we created the schedule, we'll still have the same number of PD days. Our teachers at Jefferson will have still the same PD as the rest of the district. So I want to thank you in advance for considering this proposal to allow our students at Jefferson to earn more credits each year and to increase our on-time graduation rates. And we would take any questions or comments that you would have, and I would assume that you would have some.
Thank you, Mr. Asmus. I think we'll have a few questions for you. First off, maybe Ms. Mueller is first.
So a question, a lot of the Jefferson students have had a lot of external factors that are proving to become obstacles to their completing of credits. And so I guess my only question or concern is moving the schedule to ending at a 4:45 end time. Is that impede their working opportunities by being a little bit later in the day? Do we run the risk of creep of them having a hard time, getting to class then on Thursdays, and wanting to creep back to a 3-day a week? I just worry that those external factors are not anything that we can control. So what is the concern that could continue to sort of press upon their academic timing in life?
Yeah, I'll let Mr. Green comment on this one, but I know that when we had these conversations before and we tasked Larry to go talk to the students, and they were very energetic about knowing that they had the opportunity to take 3 days. So I could work hard for 4 days and I have 3 full days off. A lot of students are working, they're finding jobs. They just appreciate the fact that they would have those 3 full days. They have the support of the solid 4 days of instruction, and then just knowing that you get additional credits to catch up. A lot of the students that come to Jefferson may have started in a hole, in a gap at another high school, and then knowing as they come here they've got to get caught up in that extra class, and just knowing that's 4 days and then 3 days off. What would you add?
So in our current system, we have a 5-period model, and they're leaving for work early for Ford, so they're losing that one period. So if we were to add another period, now they're going to be able to take the 5 periods that they actually need. So we're going to have a lot more flexibility to work with kids' work schedules that way with the 6th period.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
So I'm the CLD teacher, and a lot of my students come to school at 8 o'clock in the morning like normal, but they work all night. So some of them are working at dairies, they work roofing, they make trusses, they work at JBS. So for them, when I informally polled them, they said that this would be so beneficial to them to be able to have that 5th day to either come and get extra help from me because they don't speak English very well, or to have that day for appointments. A lot of our daycare moms are like wanting to have time with their babies that they don't have currently, and that would be beneficial for the mothers, the young mothers and fathers. So for the kids that are working all night, they show up that this would be better for them because we could accelerate them graduating and then they can go off and have a career.
Ms. Bass.
Can you, well, first of all, thanks for your presentation, your information, and bringing this to us. I am curious, though, can you just give us a little bit more information on how you gathered student feedback and input, and also the parents? In the presentation, it mentions that parents were supportive as well. So I'm just curious about the process that you went through with your parents and your students.
So we did a Google survey through our Google Docs, and we surveyed parents and students, and then met with several students. And actually, this proposal came from the students, and it was as a result of attendance, poor attendance. You know, our leadership group gets results from our attendance, monthly results, and it actually came from the students themselves.
So this is the group of students that we met when we did our school visit that
Yes.
kind of guided this proposal.
Yep, I brought the attendance to them and said, this is what we're dealing with, how can we solve that? And this was part of their conversations.
And you feel like from the Google survey that the parent response was positive enough to say, yeah, this is a good thing for our kids?
Yeah, I mean, our parent response is never very good.
Right.
But yeah.
Well, thank you.
And I would say too, this was definitely a student generated. So as we talked about attendance and we talked about graduation and what is impeding those days, a lot of times work came up, and sometimes it was around just more support to go to school that 5 days a week. And then the Saturday school where they needed that support on Saturdays, that's a 6th day of the week, providing this extra class for acceleration, and then more support on Fridays then now to come in for remediation or those field trips, especially to colleges or even to work sites for some of those students. And so this whole thing, when brought to the students, they went out to other students and asked, and it was just a very positive. All the comments from the students were positive, as well as the parents that we were able to capture.
Thank you.
Ms. Sullivan.
Yeah, thank you for that presentation. I do appreciate that you're recognizing these kids have different needs and whatnot, but I guess my concern is coming at, I don't know what the homework load is, what it looks like for Jefferson High School kids, but if they have 5 kids and they're getting out of school at 3, to me it seems like they would have that ample opportunity to at least get some homework help and whatnot after school. If they're getting out at 4:45 and now they've just increased another class period, is there any homework help time available there? Or what does their homework load look like? If they're going straight to work when they're getting out of school, when are they given that time to keep up and whatnot?
So I'll start, and then Larry can fix what I broke. So the schedule itself, the reason that you have so many minutes in that schedule is so the students can work and get that feedback right there on the spot. And so when you can work and get that feedback, then the goal is to not have as much homework. When the students do fall behind, then that's when they can come back in for extra support. On Fridays, I know Fridays is a great time when you fall behind, you're not passing a class. That's where you come in. We've got teachers on duty on Fridays to support those students. In addition, I know and then you're also talking about JAG.
Yeah, so then we're going to have a JAG time, and that JAG time in a 6-period day allows me to give a student an extra time or an extra class period to do and give one-on-one help with a student or with the teacher, that we currently can't do, because a lot of our kids are, they're at least, they need the 4 cores, and then you try to get an elective class in there to get the re-engagement piece. There's just no room in a 5-block schedule right now for those types of classes, which the 6th block would allow for that. That extra block would allow us for that extra one-on-one support for the kids. And then the Friday program is going to be huge, being able to come in and get help, you know, from pretty much on their own time on Friday for those kids that aren't working. And then we'll be able to do field trips, those re-engagement strategies that we use with our kids that takes them out of the building Monday through Friday. We'll be able to do all that on Fridays and not take them away from their core classes. We're hoping that that's going to help with, you know, keeping them caught up in those classes.
So what are the hours on Friday that teachers are going to be available?
8 to 3:30.
So is it like a drop-in, they just stop in, or do they have to make appointments, or?
No, it'll be a drop-in. We'll do all of our field trips on those days. We'll still be working for, you know, at the habitat sites. Our construction kids will still be out there. And then community service opportunities will be available on that Friday as well.
Okay, thank you.
Can I add something? As a teacher in the group, I really wanted to say that that Friday day will be the best for the teachers to have a lower student-teacher ratio, so we can actually work with the kids that are really farther behind. And so if you don't have 20 kids in your classroom, you have 3 kids to work with, you can actually get more done. So I think the Friday is going to be really beneficial to the students and the teachers to actually do some really good teaching.
Thank you, appreciate that.
And I should say too that the Friday is funded through their 21st Century Grant, which is a grant that Jefferson has to support after-school programs, remediation, college exploration, career exploration. So not all of the teachers would show up on Friday, just the teachers who are working for 21st Century would like the extra compensation. Right now we have compensation. We have these programs after school. A lot of times after school, on Saturday, the Saturday school is funded by 21st Century. This provides the opportunity for this to happen on Friday with the teachers and for the students.
Ms. Mash?
I was just curious if you had played around with what this might look like when we're in the new Jefferson building and the CTE program being right next door. It sounds like it could allow students to access those classes while still recovering credits.
Yeah, we spent considerable time looking at the schedule where a student, even if it's in a 4-day week with all 6 classes till 4:45, could have a shorter schedule during that week and then attend the 5th. One of those could be in the CTE center. So we looked at every angle and made sure that all the students that go to Jefferson, even if they're on a 4-day, we could alter that schedule a little bit to make sure they're now on a 5-day schedule and attend the CET center.
Thank you.
Any other questions, board members?
And just to close on this one, we know that there has been some obstacles at Jefferson. We know that the students are working so hard and the staff is working so hard. We know that as we are receiving some students that come to us with gaps in their credits, the students are working. They recognize that, you know, maybe I didn't get the start I wanted as a freshman or a sophomore. Now I just need the opportunity to accelerate my learning, and by offering this extra class Monday through Thursday, then that allows them to get the 2 extra credits per year, which makes a big difference as we are trying to graduate more students on time each year.
Do you have another question from Ms. Sullivan?
Yeah, and it doesn't really have to do with the 4 days, so I apologize. But you said your graduation rate's around 56%. So the 44%, are they capping out on age, or what is the support system to help get them finished off at that point?
So let me just clarify for a minute first, that doesn't mean that 44% did not graduate. What that means is that 56% were on-time graduates, meaning that that cohort, when it started in middle school, graduated within 4 years in high school. So there's not another 44% sitting out there. Many of those students will take, 5, 6, and 7 years to graduate, for example.
And you continue to support them there?
Yeah, we support all students until they graduate.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that clarification.
And many of those students, if they don't graduate, may become our students at GAP, the Greeley Alternative Program, or at the Greeley Next program, which is a part of the Zero Dropout contract.
Yep.
I had just one question. Obviously, the students at Jefferson have some unique challenges. A lot of a greater percentage work. They have Yeah, and you know those students and their challenges much better than we do. So as you were making the decision to bring before us tonight, what was your greatest concern?
Deb, you have a great concern?
I have to say, I've done a lot of research on this, and for the CLD kids, I have no concerns as far as most of those kids are supporting themselves and families in their home countries. And so most of the money they make goes back to their home country to support their families. So for them, I can only see it as a win-win situation. So for me, it's hard for me to say, Larry, that there's a concern for those kids. And the young mothers, we need time to bond with our babies, and they don't have that because they have their babies, they come right back to school, and they go into daycare. So I think that would be a good thing for that population as well. A lot of the students that we get from the other schools are having attendance issues, and that's why we inherit them. And so for this, I feel like I have a really strong feeling that these kids would be more apt to stay with us because they'll experience a little bit of success very quickly, and then they can see the light at the end of the tunnel. And that's been my experience at Jefferson, is as soon as they see that they're accumulating credits, they stay with us. So concerns, I have none.
I mean, this came from the kids. We brought a problem to the kids, just like I bring problems to the teachers. We show data all the time, and I want input, and I wouldn't have asked for their input if I didn't want it. And so anytime we bring, a problem to kids and they come up with a solution, say, okay, let's try it and see if it works. Now, next year, we might be right back here saying we want to go back to 5 days. I mean, I don't know, but we want to definitely look at the data and see if it helps. And this was the solution that they came up with. So I don't have any, I think that it'll be good for all kids.
All right, thank you both. Thank you, Mr. Asmus. Dr. Pilch, Ms. Lemon, I think we're ready for a vote.
Director Bentley?
Aye.
Director Mash?
Aye.
Director Matthews?
Aye.
Director Mueller?
Aye.
Director Norwood?
Aye.
Director Pappas?
Aye.
Director Sullivan?
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is policy KDE, Crisis Management, Safety Readiness, and Incident Management Planning. And this is an action item that needs a motion.
I move to approve the revisions to policy KDE, Crisis Management, Safety Readiness, and Incident Management Planning as presented.
Second.
Thank you both. Dr. Pilch, is there anything you would like to say on this policy addition before we open this up for board members to comment?
I think it's pretty straightforward. Thank you.
Any questions or comments from board members on the policy change? Ms. Mueller.
I just had one question. Was this recommendation from CASB for best practices? I noticed that a lot of what we're augmenting is the attempts to really intervene with suicide prevention and treatment. And I just wondered that we didn't have that policy before, if this is just something that is now, CASB's kind of recommending we put into our individual policies?
No, it actually is not. It's my understanding that this is actually coming from our professionals who work in the mental health area and work, at the greatest level with suicide prevention, intervention, and postvention.
Great, thank you for that clarification.
Any other questions from board members? Seeing none, Ms. Lemon, will you give us a vote, please?
Director Bentley?
Aye.
Director Mash?
Aye.
Director Matthews?
Aye.
Director Mueller?
Aye.
Director Norwood?
Aye.
Director Pappas?
Aye.
Director Sullivan?
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you, Ms. Lemon. Next on our agenda is a resolution for superintendent spending authority over the summer. And this is an action item that needs a motion.
I move that the Board of Education of Greeley Evans School District 6 approves the resolution to authorize delegating authority to superintendent for continuing operations during summer months.
Second.
Thank you both. And I will just say to start us off that most of the time we have a limit on Dr. Pilch's spending authority, and anything over $250,000 comes before the board. As Dr. Pilch mentioned at the beginning, of her comments, this board will not meet until August, and we have numerous bond projects that sometimes need to be signed off on before we will meet again. And so this resolution is simply giving her the authority to do that over the summer. Is there anything else, Dr. Pilch, you would like to add to that?
Very straightforward, thank you.
Any questions, comments from board members?
Do we need to read the resolution?
Ms. Sullivan?
Yeah, I just have one. Is this still having the limit? Because I'm reading each bullet point as being a 250,000. So is there still a limit of 250,000 per contract that you sign? Does that make sense what I'm asking?
No, this is to allow me to purchase beyond the 250. Right now, by board policy, we currently have the ability to spend up to 250,000 without bringing it to the Board of Education for approval. This would allow us to spend over the summer beyond that 250,000. And then those contracts or services would come back to you all in August. So kind of a post afterwards ability to see what those contracts were and to approve them at that time.
So at this time, do you foresee or do you have any knowledge of expenditures that are coming down the pipeline?
Well, I don't have any planned, but yes, I absolutely do see that there will be expenditures that come down. And just to give you some idea, if you just go back through several board meetings, you'll see that at each board meeting, which are twice a month, we approve very large contracts, in particular related to the bond issue. So I would imagine there will be some. I will tell you that I will exercise, great self-control and be very conservative around this. It's not something that I relish to do. I'll be working with Ms. Sponsor if there is a need for me to exceed the 250,000 that I currently have, and to enact this resolution should it be approved tonight. But I will be frank with you, this is necessary to keep the operations of the district going over the summer, in particular with our bond issue.
Thank you, Ms. Sullivan. Ms. Mueller?
Well, and just to give our new board members context, we do this every summer. At least that's my experience in the past few years of serving that. And especially this summer with so many schools slated to open this fall, I would be concerned that we would delay opening of West or Toyton or any of the other schools that have ongoing construction, or even the schools we're breaking ground on with Madison and such. So I guess the question is, what in lieu of this would we need to do if we didn't approve it?
As I indicated before, Ms. Mueller, it would stop some of the work moving forward until we are able to come together for the August 8th board meeting, or we would need to call a special board meeting. That would be our other option. But many of you are traveling, and so that's going to be very difficult to do.
Any other questions or comments from board members? Seeing none, Ms. Pappas, would you read the resolution for us before we vote on it?
A resolution to authorize delegating authority to superintendent for continuing operations during summer months. Whereas board policy DJ/DJA requires prior board approval for contracts and purchases over $250,000, and whereas the board wishes to delegate authority to make purchases and enter into contracts and otherwise provide for efficient management of the district during summer months in the public interest on the terms set forth below. Now therefore be it resolved that the Weld County School District 6 Board of Education hereby delegates the following temporary powers to superintendent over the summer months where no board meetings are held. Number 1, general power to contract. The board hereby delegates to the superintendent the power to enter into any contracts deemed reasonable and necessary for the district's operations in excess of $250,000. Number 2, purchase of equipment and supplies. The board hereby delegates to the superintendent authority to authorize the purchase or acquisition of supplies, materials, and equipment in excess of $250,000. 3, construction projects. The board hereby delegates to the superintendent the power to enter into contracts for construction projects in excess of $250,000. Number 4, construction change orders. The board hereby delegates to the superintendent the power to approve change orders related to construction projects previously approved or ratified by the board. Now be it further resolved that the superintendent is directed to bring all contracts, payments, authorizations, or other acts undertaken pursuant to this resolution to the August 8th Board of Education meeting for subsequent ratification by the board.
Thank you, Ms. Pepsis. Ms. Lemon, will you give us a vote, please?
Director Bentley?
Aye.
Director Mash?
Aye.
Director Matthews?
Aye.
Director Mueller?
Aye.
Director Norwood?
Aye.
Director Pappas?
Aye.
Director Sullivan?
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you, Ms. Lemon. Next up on our agenda are some of those items that we pulled off our consent agenda, and the first of those is our personnel. And so we need a motion to move forward.
I'm sorry, say that again.
We need a motion to bring this before the board.
So, Mr. Fall, maybe you could provide some guidance to the board on this. I believe what they need is a motion on the personnel item, and then we would have the discussion.
It's on our agenda.
Yeah.
So just, like we make all the motions.
All right, Mr. Fall?
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
I move to approve the personnel report as presented.
I second it. Thank you
Thank
for
you.
the clarification on that. So I had just happened to be going through these because we had like 33 or however many there are on this list, but I really haven't ever studied the personnel until this weekend. And I just have a couple real quick questions, pretty minor, but on the fourth page on that document, it has substitute employment. You have one that's a substitute classified and one that's a substitute certified. How can you have a certified at the administration office? That would be my first question. And then the second question is, are those, all the temporary positions and that substitute employment, are those ending dates or are they start dates?
So we hire substitutes every month. The Human Resources Department offers substitute training and employment ongoing, and then they do an orientation each month. And then we bring you substitute hires at almost every board meeting. They are all under the administration site because they're actually not assigned to a building. They're assigned to administration. So certified is actually someone with a teacher's license who would be deployed to a school building, but they're under administration because they are not assigned to a building, just as the classified sub would be as well.
Okay. And then are those internships, are those paid positions or are those just kind of?
Yes, those internships are, some are paid positions and some are out of the individual department's budget and some are out of mill levy override funds.
Okay, thank you.
That's part of the district internship program. So it's part of our career pathways program. And so these departments have stepped up and have said, we'll take these interns and we will work with them to give them that summer intern experience.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you for clarifying. That was all the questions I had for that.
Any other questions or comments from board members on the personnel agenda item? Seeing none, Ms. Lemon, will you give us a vote, please?
Director Bentley?
Aye.
Director Mash?
Aye.
Director Matthews?
Aye.
Director Mueller?
Aye.
Director Norwood?
Aye.
Director Pappas?
Aye.
Director Sullivan?
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0.
Next on our agenda is the bond fund, AP Mountain States, Franklin FGMP, and this is an action item that needs a motion to proceed.
I move to approve the AP Mountain States Contract Amendment Number 3, FGMP Franklin Edition as presented.
Second.
Thank you both. Ms. Sullivan, again, your question on this one.
Okay, so I was going through this and I guess I need clarification as well because in the original contract it states that you were needing $10,000, but then if you keep going through, then it got increased to $2.2 million, but ultimately you're asking for $4.3 million when the bottom line is only 2.2. I'm gonna expect Kent, I guess
I will
gonna
start with
clarify?
that, Ms. Sullivan. Thank you. So that the initial contract is just to begin to secure the architect on a job. And then the initial contract of the $2.95 million was for the original project as identified in the bond issue when we went out to the voters for approval. However, because of the bond proceeds, we were able to go to the Citizens Bond Oversight Committee and request that we utilize some of those bond proceeds to do an additional work at Franklin Middle School. And that additional work is an addition which will allow us to get rid of the portable classrooms there, and will also allow for additional office space for those folks who are currently working out of portable classrooms and other ineffective spaces. So it is a change of scope. It is additional to that project. And you may remember that CBOC also approved the additional classrooms at Meeker. That was a change of scope. The Career and Technical Education Center and the Jefferson High School is similar. That was also approved by CBOC. It was not in the original bond. Those are all parts of the bond proceeds.
Okay, and then what is the Fund 41? I've not heard of that one. Because it says what it comes from foreign.
That's our bond.
That's the bond fund. Okay,
Yes.
thank you. That was all the questions I had on that one.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments on the bond fund AP Mountain States for Franklin? Seeing none, Ms. Lemon, will you give us a vote, please?
Director Bentley?
Aye.
Director Mash?
Aye.
Director Matthews?
Aye.
Director Mueller?
Aye.
Director Norwood?
Aye.
Director Pappas?
Aye.
Director Sullivan?
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0.
President Matthews, if I may, I
Yes, ma'am.
probably should have added that you all may remember that when the first facility master plan had nearly $1 billion of work that was identified. So that facility master plan still exists. And so as we've had bond proceeds, we've then begun to look at that facility master plan and to look at what our priorities are. And one of the biggest priorities is to get rid of portable classrooms, of course, and to ensure student safety and security with those secure entries. And so, that, and then career pathways was a priority as well. And so we've been able to, with some of those bond proceeds, begin to tick away at some of those things that we had to cut from the original bond issue when we made the decision to bring that bond down to $395 million. But with proceeds, we're nearing $600 million. And so, we've been able to make some of those projects happen that were in that first facility master plan of nearly $1 billion.
Thank you, Dr. Pilch. Again, we set out saying that we were going to get rid of 1/3 of the portable classrooms in this district, that bond issue. But because of bond proceeds, that number's up to probably at least half of our. Am I saying too much, Mr.
No,
Henson?
I don't think so. We're working hard to get rid of portables.
Yeah.
We're working very hard.
Currently, if we just stop today, we will have 51% of our 142 portable classrooms eliminated. So our hope is to go farther.
Thank you, sir. Next item on our agenda is Bond Fund AP Mountain States Northridge, CMGC. And this is an action item and we'll need a motion.
Did we vote on the Franklin
I'm sorry.
item? Thank you.
That happens at least once a meeting.
We did.
We did?
voted.
Oh, sorry. We did vote.
Amy's taking care of it.
We did vote, okay.
Yeah.
Then,
Confusing me.
I answered the question. I started talking again afterwards. That was my fault. Okay, sorry.
All right, so next item we do need is for Northridge, and we do need an action or a motion.
I move to approve the AP Mountain States Northridge contract as presented.
Second.
Take a vote. Ms. Sullivan, I'll
Yes.
give it to you again. for
It's
your
me
question.
again, yes. So I guess the reason why I need to explain, I'm bringing a lot of these forward just because when I sat down and added this up, there's over $33.5 million in our consent agenda, and I'm just kind of taken back that we haven't had discussions on a lot of these items. Maybe this is a normal thing I get it on some of the utility ones at the end of the year. We don't have a choice but to pay those bills and whatnot, but on some of these other larger ones there just seems to be a discrepancy. I just want to make sure that I'm understanding as well as everyone else. So regarding the Northridge one, the proposal is for 8.3 million, but they're asking for 9.7. So if I'm reading that one correctly.
Mr. Henson, would you like to talk about the process here? I think it's would be helpful for the board to understand the CMGC or construction manager, general contractor. I think that's probably what's impacting the numbers here.
Yeah, actually, the overall price of the project is $9,750,000. That includes contingencies. So the construction cost for what we have left in this project was the 8 million. I just lost it. The 8 million number that you stated.
So it's not a change order or an increase to that $9 million amount. It's actually, that's what the original budget was, but the dollars are coming in that $8 million, so.
Yeah, we've already done some bond work at Northridge. We did the roof a year ago, which was a best grant match. So we've already done that work. So in terms of the total bond package that was on the bond sheet, you know, when we started, that's been subtracted off. So what you see is the remaining. So the $9,750,000 contains some contingency in there as we go through the process.
Okay, so am I understanding like cost of inflation or something? Is that?
Well, we actually, what you see tonight in Exhibit 2 is what you're really approving is the $21,000 and the $12,847 for the pre-con for the general contractor, and that's on the back page in Exhibit 2 there. So that is to get the project started. We've hired an architect. We're doing a design assist here, so we brought on the general contractor and the mechanical subcontractor together really early in the project, because that is going to be an important part of the career and college readiness goal for Northridge High School. So we need to get out in front of that pretty early. So those are the pre-con fees, similar to in the other contract, you saw the $10,000. That was the pre-con fee. Those are the pre-con fees for this project. And then we actually don't have, when you mentioned inflation, we don't have the estimated cost yet. We just have our budget.
Okay. All right. Appreciate that. Thank
Yeah,
you.
you're welcome.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, Ms. Lemon.
Director Bentley?
Aye.
Director Mash?
Aye.
Director Matthews?
Aye.
Director Mueller?
Aye.
Director Norwood?
Aye.
Director Pappas?
Aye.
Director Sullivan?
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you, Ms. Lemon. Next item on our agenda is the General Fund Academic Achievement Ames Community College Early College Academy. And this is an action item that needs a motion.
I move to approve the Ames Community College Early College Academy contract as presented.
Second?
Thank you both. Again, Ms. Sullivan.
Okay, so this is obviously the Early College Academy. I just need help understanding, I guess, what's the enrollment numbers look like for this next year, and then I guess how many credits are they estimating the kids are going to be taking, and then historically, how much was allotted for this program last year?
So the contract for last year was very similar. I do not have those other numbers in front of me. I will need to provide that to you later. I could estimate, we are at full capacity at Ames Community College, which means we're sitting around 420-ish or so. Every student will enroll in at least one college course. In 9th grade, it's one course. In 10th grade, it's at least two. And by their junior and senior year, every student is taking a college course. But I don't know how many college courses that is exactly. They do give us a reduced tuition rate at that $750,000. Do you have a concern about us paying tuition for those students at Early College Academy?
I don't have a concern for paying it. I'm just kind of curious. $750,000. I just want to make sure that I understand how the money's getting spent and.
It's being paid on tuition directly to Ames Community College at a reduced tuition rate per class. It also helps to cover fees for those courses as well.
Okay. Does this also cover their books and other expenditures, or?
I don't, do we buy books, Megan? Yes. Megan is nodding her head. Yes, it is books also.
Okay. Do you have offhand, Megan, how many people are enrolled for next year? Do you have that number?
She's going to that
budget
document.
It's in the binder. She's got that.
She's going to that budget document.
Tell you what, Ms. Mueller, you also had a question.
Not really a question, but I just want to point out that Ames is giving us a huge break.
Yes, they are.
$200 per credit.
Right.
$200 per credit. The partnership with Ames is substantial, and I cannot accentuate enough how much we appreciate that partnership, because Ames has done a tremendous job in trying to make this a very affordable option for students to graduate with a associate's degree while also graduating with their high school degree. And so when I saw that, I'm like, wow, how do they even afford to have a class?
Well, it's a significant commitment on their part, Ms. Mueller. There's no question about that. And, you know, when Dr. Bornstein got here and was looking at this, you know, we really had to do a lot of work to make sure everybody understood what we had entered into here, that it wasn't intended to be cost neutral for anybody, not for District 6 and not for Ames Community College. They also provide the facility as well as their staff to the site.
So we are projecting about 370 students to be enrolled in Early College Academy next year. As Dr. Pilch said, the number of credits that they take really varies based on not only their grade level, but also their interests. And some students take more and some take fewer. So it really depends on the student. We don't just pay $750,000 to Ames. We do get billed based on the credits that they're actually taking.
Okay.
So this really is just kind of setting in the budget a holder to be able to pay those tuition bills as they come in.
That makes sense. I appreciate that. And by no means am I trying to take away from this program, because this is like an opportunity that I wish I would have had available when I was in high school to be able to conquer out some college classes. I just want to be able to understand what I'm signing my name to when I vote.
And roughly an associate's degree is about 66 credits. So if you calculate 66 credits by the amount they're charging per credit, that's at the maximum of the associate's degree. You could kind of get a guesstimate there.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, comments from board members? Seeing none, Ms. Lemon, will you give us a vote, please?
Director Bentley?
Aye.
Director Mash?
Aye.
Director Matthews?
Aye.
Director Mueller?
Aye.
Director Norwood?
Aye.
Director Pappas?
Aye.
Director Sullivan?
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you, Ms. Lemon. Next item is Grant Fund Academy Achievement, Zero Dropouts, ESSER 3 Attendance Advocates. And this is an action item that needs a motion.
I move to approve the Zero Dropouts LLC contract for attendance advocates as presented.
Second.
Thank you both. Mr. Norwood.
I'll just lump 18 and 19 together, and then we can vote on them separately. I looked at it. I looked at the amount of money that's being budgeted for zero dropouts, and I just had a couple questions. I see that there's 7 people, 2-2-2-1. When I look at that, it figures out to be about $90,000 per person that we're paying for zero dropouts, and I'm not arguing the amount of money. My question, I guess, and I guess Dr. Pilch, this would be for you or for Megan, would it be less expensive to do it in-house? And if so, could we get teachers to take over that zero dropout and work with the students that way? And then my second question would be is, and again, this is my naivety, what happens when the ESSER funds run out?
Thank you, Mr. Norwood, for that. And I'll just introduce Mr. Mark Cousins, who's here tonight representing Zero Dropouts, and who actually oversees the attendance advocates who are part of one of these grants, and works very closely with the credit recovery specialists and the others, and is also the administrator of the Next Academy that was in a contract you approved earlier on the consent agenda. So I'll just say first that that $92,000 is not going directly to those 7 people in its entirety. There are benefits included in that cost, as well as overhead, and I assume I'm paying a little bit for Mr. Cousins to be able to supervise those attendance advocates. And then to answer your question about could our teachers do this, I will tell you that these people are very specialty trained. This is all they do. Their role of attendance advocate or their role of credit recovery specialist, it is all they do. They work 40-hour weeks at least, they work evenings and weekends, and they work 12 months. So these attendance advocates were hitting the ground late last summer, bringing students back in and really actually paying most of their contract by the numbers of students they brought back with the PPR that they brought back to the district. I've worked with zero dropouts for about a decade, longer than a decade, actually, I think closer to 15 years now, between here and a former district. Have very high trust in the work they do. They've continued to adjust their programming as the needs arise. To answer your question about ESSER dollars, both of these interventions are directly related to work that needs to happen because of what happened with COVID. So attendance advocates to get students back, K through 12, and to make sure they stayed in school to complete school. And now theoretically, would we want those attendance advocates to be ongoing? We would, but part of our decision to use a contractor was that then those are contracted employees that are being laid off by their organization rather than being District 6 employees that we are laying off, quite frankly. And the intent behind these ESSER dollars is that you're doing this very hard, heavy lift, this big push to get kids back on track in 3 years. And we know it's going to probably take longer than that, but the intent behind these dollars is that much of this would not be ongoing, that it would be one-time intervention to get kids back on track. Now, I'll tell you, since I got here, when Mark was still a high school principal at Greeley Central High School, we have talked about attendance advocates and the importance of having a person or two in every feeder system to just chase after kids and bring kids back and keep kids in school and avoid the truancy court for students. And so that's a part of their work. The credit recovery specialists are currently working with upperclassmen, 10th, 11th, and 12th graders to get them back on track from credit lost and from lost learning that occurred during COVID. Mr. Cousins.
A couple of things I'll point out, Mr. Norwood, if I may, is the RFP from the district went out last summer. We actually applied for and got the RFP and were granted the RFP in September. And we started working with the hiring process with the principals at each building, and we are operating in 5 buildings. So part of that is we have one person at Jefferson, and we have one person at Gap, and 4 at each one of the other high schools. To date, we've had over 2,100 contacts from those people that are working directly with kids. One of the things we found out from principals is that they didn't necessarily want to stay strictly on the RFP because everything at the school is a cycle. For example, we'll come back in August and we'll have 4 of our AAs and CRs chasing kids because it's important to get them back fast. And when they don't show up on the 12th, we need to start making phone calls and we need to contact people. We have conducted over 400 home visits. And the training associated with how to do a home visit, when to do a home visit, and how to get access to parents. And you can't do that at 1 o'clock in the afternoon or even 10 o'clock in the morning. So a lot of our people will flex their hours and work until 7:30, 8:30 at night so they can go make home visits when parents are at home for them to talk to. To date, we've had approximately 1,700 impacts on current classes this last year that were positive. So those were kids that were failing a class within the school setting that we worked with that kid either in the classroom or in a pull-out session outside of the classroom to get that credit back. We've had 270 courses recovered to date through the course recovery process and Edgenuity as attributed to the 14 people that were staffed right now. The biggest part that I have in overseeing those 14 is that their job description changes constantly. And I've got to work them through what it means to work in public education when the job description changes and the cycle of education brings something new on board. I love the fact that the district reached out to Zero Dropouts to provide this because we have expertise with this, with 9th grade interventionists that you guys already fund and adding to that to combat the impact of the pandemic. I also like the idea that as we go through the contract, if we're lucky enough to keep the contract this year and again, or this coming year and the year after, then we're responsible for trying to prepare our staff to have some actionable skills that they can market after they get done with 3 years with us. So we're willing to take that on, and we have been taking that on, and we're happy to do that. I certainly understand why when you look at the figure, it's like, oh, Mark, how much money are we going to give you for these 14 staff members? But please keep in mind that we have our own medical insurance that we provide for them. We have matching 401k opportunities for them. We have substantial overhead in relationship to their employment. And then we have the burden of trying to find them employment after they've completed the 3 years as attendance advocates and course recovery specialists. So does that answer your question in regards to that?
It does, and as a former teacher, I respect the fact of chasing around students who don't want to go to class too, so I appreciate that.
And the good news is right now we are 12-month employees. So every one of them right now is working with summer school and chasing kids to get them into summer school. Did a lot of the lifting to get kids to sign up the online contracts at the high school level to be in summer school. So.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Ms. Pappas.
I just want to say, Mr. Cousins, thank you for that information and just the comprehensive look at what a change this has made and what a difference this has made for our students. And I also want to just say that, I think I may be the only board member that was here when we actually decided to start a contract with zero dropouts. And so we did a very comprehensive look. Dr. Pilch came to the board and we had a lot of questions, like you do, Mr. Norwood. I mean, we had a lot of questions at the time. Is this the right thing to do for our kids? And we made the decision that, yes, we believe it will be the right things to do for our kids. And so your input tonight, Mr. Cousins, is very, very helpful. And I believed then, and I believe now that it is the right thing to do for our kids with the contract with zero dropouts. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Pappas. Thank you, Mr. Cousins, for being here tonight.
Thank you, sir.
I don't see any other questions, so Ms. Lemon, will you give us a vote, please?
Director Bentley?
Aye.
Director Mash?
Aye.
Director Matthews?
Aye.
Director Mueller?
Aye.
Director Norwood?
Aye.
Director Pappas?
Aye.
Director Sullivan?
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you, Ms. Lemon. Next on our agenda is Grant Fund Academy Achievement Zero Dropouts ESSER 3 Credit Recovery Specialist. And this is an action item that needs a motion.
I move to approve the Zero Dropouts LLC contract for attendance advocates as present. Oops, did I just do the wrong one? Sorry.
Okay, say the same thing.
Oh, okay. Attendance advocates as presented.
Second.
Thank you both. I think we got just about all the information we need on that last one, but is there any other question or comment? Hearing none, Ms. Lemon, will you give us a vote, please?
Director Bentley?
Aye.
Director Mash?
Aye.
Director Matthews?
Aye.
Director Mueller?
Aye.
Director Norwood?
Aye.
Director Pappas?
Aye.
Director Sullivan?
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you, Ms. Lemon. Well, that is all we have for you tonight. If you're joining us online or if you're here tonight, we certainly appreciate you hanging with us. Very, very detailed and informative meeting. And just a reminder, we won't be back until August, so everyone have a great summer. This meeting is adjourned.